Welcome to the Transnet podcast, the first one of the year of 2024. We are on the sidelines of Mining Indaba 2024, where we are finding new ways of doing business for the future of African mining. Today I've got Moshe Motlohi, the Managing Director of Transnet Port Authorities. And today's focus is going to be on the ports and the recovery plan that is being implemented at the ports. How are you doing today, sir? How's your Indaba experience been today so far?
Look, I think it's great. I've seen a number of exhibitors, clients offering products that really are exciting, that can make the industry to do well. The mood is up, just talking to few participants, and there's a great diversity that I've noted this year compared to the other period, and yeah, it looks okay.
Perfect. So let's maybe start with the good before we get to challenges. I want to talk about, since the last Indaba, there were obviously a lot of, I would say, key achievements that Transnet achieved throughout the year. But I want to talk about how those helped to optimize operations, but also at the same time, how are the ports doing?
Look, sitting here, we are having a sense of great relief in that late last year, towards the last quarter, we had challenges in the ports where we had serious congestion. That was last seen maybe back in 2002, where the industry imposed a surcharge. We had a choice of sitting back and cry and say what's happening, or we had to say how do we galvanize our teams around recovering. We came up with a process that we called the Container Recovery Program. We knew if we recover on containers, we are able to impact on manufacturing, mining, and a few other industries. We then brought together better coordination between the Transnet ODs at the ports, which is TNPA and TPT, and we also brought in TFR. We also kept going the interface that we're having with customers, where we started looking at the current day business and then review it, how it went, and look at the next 24 hours and project the next 7 days. And the target really was to say, how do we reduce the number of ships that were stranded at the ports? Yeah. We had an early estimation that we're going to overcome this thing by February. Yeah. But we told ourselves that we've seen that before. It cannot be February. Yeah. We worked flat out every day, 7:30 to 8:30 daily. We would have daily meetings where we're looking at those areas. We had streamed our work along the value chain of the port and say, what is it that TNPA has to do? What equipment, resources they need, TPT and TFR. And every day would look at those, how they are performing. And we held these meetings Monday to Monday. There was no day that we're not having these meetings. And I want to really commend the colleagues who gave up the festive season being part of those meetings, because we only terminated the meetings during the second week of January. Wow. We were able to reduce and break the congestion that was sitting at 37 ships outside the port of Durban to where by January we had about 7 ships outside, which was within the range where you normally would have containers. Yeah. And a lot of stuff came through them. There were areas where we had to look at how we change the processes of working, where we identify that the biggest enemy of the ports is to have a port infrastructure that is idle. Yeah. For TNPA, if there's a ship that needs to be moved, if you don't move it on time, you're causing delays. Yeah. Or if there's a berth that is empty that needs a ship, we then say it must be targeted. Bring a ship in so that you can quickly work. Yeah. Same thing happened from the TPT side. They reconfigured their shifts where they introduced a 4-shift pattern, meaning that they were working continuously now, but giving employees much longer breaks. Yeah. For the first time in history, we had the ports working full out on Christmas Day. Wow. It was not like it's an optional day. New Year and Christmas Day. Yeah. So they worked, and that's why we're sitting here saying that we are relieved that that congestion is not here. We also had looked at how we can bring the aging equipment back to help us continue whilst waiting for the new one, because we are under no illusion that replacing our pieces of equipment takes long. Yes. But then you needed to still do something. Yeah. And we had to appeal to supply chain people, maintenance teams, and we identified that some areas were going to only improve if we work with OEMs. Yeah. We brought them on board. So the issue of acquisition of spares became much easier, and the problem solving was improved, and we started seeing the number of pieces of equipment increasing from when we started. They would be having 45 straddle carriers at TPT, but because of the engagement, encouragement, nudging, kicking in some instances, those meetings would be rough. But we got to where really the number increased up to 68, which is great. And we did commend again the teams from TPT, because as an authority, we needed to step up and be seen to be doing what we have to do. But we were mindful that we cannot just do this thing recklessly. We have to do it in the interest of the economy. And fortunately, we found a partner who was willing to work with us in TPT in this case. And the results are there showing.
Brilliant. I want to talk about the recovery. I want to talk about the pillars within the strategy of recovery. And what are those markers? What have you set internally as your benchmarks to hit relative to this recovery plan that you've placed?
Look, for starters, we looked at the system and say, are we having a system that works? For example, this would be talking to how you have organized your work environment, shifts, how long are the shift breaks that are being taken by all the players within the board. Some were taking longer, then we had to simplify those, optimize them. So one was the process optimization, just on the shift pattern and arrangement, saying the quick escalation of issues. Don't wait up until it's too late before you raise issues that need attention. We looked at the technology that we're using and say, how can we use what we have to improve the situation? Then the bringing in of the OEMs was handy in that, because they came with expertise that will help with a quick diagnosis of issues, and we will then start working on those issues that needed to be problem solved. Then we had to look at operational discipline. Again, of saying no more finger pointing. The teams that are working, they must have better coordination. Every day, without fail, the team at TPT will phone TNPA and say, today in this shift we are expecting X number of movements around this time. TNPA will start lining up resources to support that, which is awesome, because if you do not have that coordination, you're ending up with TNPA focusing elsewhere, TPT expecting this.
You fall flat.
So we're able just out of those operational discipline to bring issues, and again to sensitize our operators and say each equipment, how much productivity is expected of it. So that you know, even if you've got less, at least you've got a number which must be made known by all those who are operating. Corporate affairs was very instrumental in this. The information of daily performance was communicated within Transnet and externally every day to say these were the targets, this is what we're chasing, tomorrow that's what we want to do.
I want to come in exactly there. When we talk about the collaborative spirit of finding the collaborative spirit in the midst of a crisis, this is what happened. You suddenly started to work a little bit closer. You started to definitely pull closer in terms of how you do things and processes. I want to talk about how you work with strategic partners externally and how you brought them into this process to make sure that everybody understands that we understand the problems, but we're fixing them. How did you work with those external partners and those strategic partners as the Ports Authority?
Look, for me, we said this was more like a three-legged pot. One leg was that of Transnet. Transnet, all of us, management and employees. The second layer was that of customers. The third layer was that of suppliers. Because for over a long period of time, we'd be just talking to customers and ourselves, really leaving out suppliers outside of this. Customers will come with new insights, what you need to do, but the suppliers were out of the picture. Once we brought that third leg, of saying you must know this is how important you are to our business. This is what happens when you deliver. This is what happens when you do not deliver. I'll make you an example around the fuel suppliers for TNPA for tags. We'll find that they say maybe we don't come at night to refuel and the tags will be waiting for fuel. But once those fuel suppliers realize that they were the essential part of our business, it brought a new meaning and energy to them to say, actually, we matter in this business. We're not just here to collect money, but we make this thing work. So once you start bringing them in, you really do well. Talking to customers, they will tell you of different alternatives that you can consider. even the customization and changing of these plans had to be signed off by customers to make sure that they are on board and understand what is being changed and why it is changed. And therefore, our employees then becomes the ambassador who will then say, we understand what is expected. And this one of getting our employees or Transnet functioning well is far from over. It's something that we cannot overemphasize.
Yeah.
We have to invest in it to make sure that the brand essence of Transnet, we have no product, but we've got the service to offer.
I want to jump in and talk about the new way of doing things. I want to talk about that transformation. I want to talk about what new technological advancements you have through this process of figuring out a new way of work and these new ways. What new tech is there now at TNPA, and how is technology driving the way that the business works?
Look, we had serious issues of congestion in the port of Durban, Richards Bay, and here in Cape Town. One thing that we have identified that has to come as a way of new ways. For the longest of time, we felt that the traffic management issues are the responsibility of the terminal operators. They would tell us this, but we had no way of knowing what is coming our way. We went to market. Last week we awarded a tender to somebody who's going to help us with a traffic management tool. This tool is designed to integrate with the booking systems of various operators. What we want to know as TNPA is to say how many trucks are coming, how far are they from the port, and look at that and
resource
compare.
allocation.
Yes, exactly, and say if the road network in particular, say Port A, can only take 50 trucks an hour, and you can see that the customer or terminal operators are receiving 70, you can tell them keep it at 50.
Yes.
Or then you start planning and say actually the demand now has moved from 50 to 7. So that traffic management is going to be something, a big game changer. The second one, we have a number plate recognition system, which are meant to augment the traffic management system, where the camera looks at the number plate, gets the detail of who is the owner of the truck,
Driver.
where it's coming from, and the issues of people cloning trucks with the intent of stealing cargo.
Yes.
That gets to be eliminated completely.
Yes.
The way in motion, we're working on it so that we do away with the way bridges that are slowing down the operation. As they come into the port, they drive through, then the information will be transmitted into the system for us to say we understand exactly what has been brought into the port, and you can start again analyzing those trends and say in road A, this is the true footprint and the tonnage that goes through. The strength of this road should be X. In road B, this is what's happening. So we're trying really to use this technology to inform us, to anticipate, what is coming our way. How can we then reposition ourselves to respond?
Let's talk about sustainability. Let's talk about what initiatives are being implemented at the ports to remain sustainable but also economically viable.
Look, some of our ports, we know that they are always pressed. Let's talk around the sustainability from a perspective of saying you want our grandchildren to inherit the same ports that we're running. And if you're going to do that, you need to take care of the environment. So we've seen that the first point of call is to improve our environmental management so that we know that what we design for the port will have less impact, which is negative towards the livelihood around the port of the marine life, and everybody else has to be in that space. Secondly, we're looking at the businesses that are coming into the port now from an economic sustainability point of view and say, by the way, operator A, you had promised us that you were going to handle X number of tons over a period. Are you in that space? If they are not, you start talking to them and say, there's economic erosion happening here. How can we help to bring you up to speed? Is there something else that we need to do? And then this then goes back and inform our marketing drive from the Port Authority and say, which area should you go and market more to the market? In terms of partnering with other ports, sister ports, sister relationships. How do you then choose the ports that are going to come and augment the areas of interest for you, for your future development and stability? So these are the things that really we are doing. We're looking at as well and say, operators who are in their equipment, to what extent is it friendly to our environment? To what extent are they maintaining it in line with what ought to be done? I mean, as I was walking around here, I saw one company that is called exciting tool that helps whoever who is an asset owner to be able to track the condition of that asset, and it will indicate if you are overstocking in terms of what you should be having in spares, or you are understock in some areas, and if there are issues of metal fatigue and few other things, which is interesting.
Yes.
So that's the value that you get out of this environment, and say there's actually a solution that can help your business to be sustainable.
That's amazing. I want to maybe understand a little bit more about what your message is. We're looking at TNPA, 30 years of mining in Indaba, 30 years of democracy. What is the message from TNPA to the customers for the next 30 years? What does that look like? What does the future look like for TNPA?
Look, it's an interesting question. Look, as things stand, I think together with mining industry, we have to work close, because if there's a strong push from government and other sources, the president was talking about beneficiation of the products that leave the country. That is relevant to us, because we need to understand at what point is that expected to happen, so that when we plan future ports, we say what kind of infrastructure should we have to handle different commodities. Because if you're not going to handle commodities the way they are today, you need to have that point of transition and say this port will have to be structured this way.
And will require X investment.
Exactly. And also, just if we are going to see 30 years of growth, we have to work close with the mining industry. In ports where we've got conveyor belts, these guys, maybe we run, say, 100 kilometers of conveyor belt, they run thousands of kilometers.
Yes.
So we've got an opportunity to learn from the industry, people who are experts. And we should then not be stranded again in terms of what then do we need to do. If our mines are world-class, the port has to augment that and be a world-class port. So for me, I'm really looking forward to that growth that is going certainly to happen. And we know if the port works, the entire economy works.
I just want to thank you, Moshe Motlohi, Managing Executive for Transnet National Ports Authority, in helping us understand the new ways that the business future of the ports is going to take. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for sharing openly the challenges, but also what's being implemented to sort out those challenges and ultimately create a brighter future. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.